For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. Washington Post journalist Evan Gershkovich is being released from a Russian prison. He's among some 24 prisoners in the largest prisoner swap between the U.S. and Russia since World War II. Paul Whelan, an American corporate security executive, is among the prisoners to be exchanged. Both have been convicted of espionage charges and sentenced to 16 years in prison. In separate cases, the U.S. government considered baseless. The man accused of being the main plotter in al-Qaeda's September 11, 2001 terror attacks that killed some 3,000 people agreed to a plea deal that will avoid the death penalty. He's one of 3 detainees at Guantanamo Bay who agreed to the deal. FSN's Ira Spitzer reports.
In a letter to the families of 9/11 victims, prosecutors say Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and 2 other men have agreed to plead guilty to murder and other charges in exchange for prosecutors not seeking the death penalty. The 3 men, as well as 2 others, are charged with plotting the attacks that killed nearly 3,000 people and have been in U.S. custody for more than 2 decades. Muhammad is believed to be the one who presented the idea of flying hijacked airplanes into a building to Osama bin Laden. However, the cases had stalled over a number of issues, including whether their treatment in CIA prisons had tainted the evidence against them, including confessions.
Ira Spitzer.
The treatment includes allegations of torture. Mohammed was waterboarded some 183 times, according to his defense attorneys. The Center for Constitutional Rights, which represented some of the detainees at Guantanamo, welcomed the plea deal and in a statement said the deals were inevitable because the 9/11 case was never going to be tried before a military commission, which it said maintains the unacceptable status quo and cover-up of torture and abuse of detainees. Amnesty International welcomed the news, calling it justice for victims of the attacks and some accountability. Daphne Eviatar with Amnesty International said in a statement, "This should be the beginning of the end of the Guantanamo Bay Detention Center. We urge the Biden administration to release remaining detainees who have not been charged with crimes and close the facility once and for all." Some 24 people remain at Guantanamo. More than a dozen have been cleared for release, but have remained there for years. The Israeli military says it has confirmed the head of Hamas's military wing was killed in an airstrike in Gaza last month in July. The announcement about Mohammed Daif comes a day after the assassination of Hamas's political chief in an airstrike in Iran. The killings have left U.S., Qatari, and Egyptian mediators scrambling to salvage talks for a ceasefire deal in Gaza, even as international officials try to avert an all-out regional war. Donald Trump falsely suggested Vice President Kamala Harris misled voters about her race as a former president appeared before the National Association of Black Journalists in Chicago during an interview that quickly turned hostile Wednesday. Edwin Vieira reports.
She was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
Former President Donald Trump has made racially charged comments about Vice President Kamala Harris before, calling her a DEI diversity hire, saying she doesn't like Jewish people. Democrats are calling on Republican lawmakers to condemn what they call racist and anti-Semitic statements, but some also say they're not surprised, since they expected the race to develop an ugly undercurrent once the vice president replaced President Joe Biden as the presumptive nominee. Harris has always spoken of herself as black, and White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre says no one has the right to tell another person how to identify.
Only she can speak to her experience. Only she can speak to what it's like. She's the only person that can do that. And I think it's insulting for anybody. It doesn't matter if it's a former leader, a former president.
I'm Edwin J. Vieira for Pacifica Network and Public News Service.
Trump's comments have spurred the hashtag #WhenITurnedBlack on social media. His interview quickly became heated. Trump sparred with interviewer Rachel Scott of ABC News, accusing her of giving him a very rude introduction, with a tough first question about his past criticism of black people and black journalists, his attack on black prosecutors who've pursued cases against him, and dinner at his Florida club he had with a white supremacist. Trump also said he'd pardon January 6th rioters who stormed the U.S. Capitol after his baseless lies the 2020 election was stolen from him.
140 police officers were assaulted that day. Their injuries included broken bones, at least one officer lost an eye, one had 2 cracked ribs, 2 smashed spinal discs, another had a stroke. Were the people who assaulted those 140 officers, including those I just mentioned, patriots who deserve pardons?
If they're innocent, I would pardon them.
They've been convicted.
And by the way, the Supreme Court just
Harris last night criticized Trump's disposition and statements.
The American people deserve better. The American people deserve a leader who tells the truth, a leader who does not respond with hostility and anger when confronted with the facts. We deserve a leader who understands that our differences do not divide us.
Today, Harris will deliver the eulogy of Congresswoman Democrat Sheila Jackson Lee in Houston, who died last week from cancer. I'm Christina Onnested reporting for Pacifica Radio.